Hey everybody, welcome back to the Jim Feist Handicapping Show here at Down DeMarco's Pizzeria and Wine Bar, located at 9785 West Charleston Boulevard, here on a beautiful Vegas day, on a beautiful patio, at a place that has awards that are a mile long for their food, their happy hours. So if you are in the area, you've not been to Down DeMarco's, please take some time, take an Uber if you're on the strip, and come to Down DeMarco's. You will not be disappointed. You will rave about it and want to come back. Today, outside of my good friend Jim, and his name is obviously on the show, the legend, we have two friends of the show that have been with us many times, and Matt Humans and Wes Reynolds. Gentlemen, welcome back to the show.
It's great to be here. As I expected, there's an overflow crowd. A lot of people fired up for the Masters this week, Wes. Wes, you can see how fired up people are about Augusta National.
Yeah, NCAA tournament withdrawal, I guess, for sure. But the Masters is the next biggest betting event, and then the Kentucky Derby, and then get to summer, and we get into the dog days of summer for sure.
Yes, we do. And before we get into that, Jim, you and I have been talking, and you've been really outspoken about this transfer portal and the way guys are transferring and coaches leaving. So I got something, and I purposely didn't send it to you because I want to get your raw opinion when I read this.
He's going to blindside me with something.
So there's a guy from my home state of Illinois by the name of A.J. Storr. Let me read you off where he's been from high school. In 17-18 and 18-19, he went to Kankakee High School in Illinois. And then for the season of 19-20, he comes to Vegas and plays for Bishop Gorman High School. 1 year later, he goes to Arizona to Compass Prep. Then he goes to IMG as a post-grad school before he starts college. 22-23, he goes to St. John's. 23-24, he goes to Wisconsin. 24-25, he was at Kansas. And now he's back in the portal again. We are talking about a kid who is looking at his fourth college, and he went through 4 schools in high school.
Wow.
That's why I didn't give it to you ahead of time.
How much money did he get each time he transferred?
I didn't look that up, but when I got this sent to me, I'm like, Storr is in the portal again. Wow. It's unbelievable how the amount that he's... Matt, were you aware of all this?
Oh, yeah. I followed A.J. Storr's career, but I would say that it's a sad state that college basketball and college sports are in right now, college basketball and football specifically. But at the same time, I'm not against limiting players and their opportunities because they're just taking advantage of the system the way it is right now. Coaches have been able to bounce around and make all the money they want for a long time, so why limit the players? Obviously, this system needs to be fixed. There's got to be more regulations and rules and some sort of salary cap, but I'm not going to rail against the players taking advantage of opportunity because that's the way it's set up right now.
So Matt, I want to ask you this, and then Wes, I'm curious to see. I was telling Jim about this. I talked to some good friends of mine who are in the Division I coaching bracket about things that went down in San Antonio, because the Final Four, there's always a coaches convention, a coaches meeting, and I've been privileged to be at that a couple times. And I asked, what was the topic about? And they said, here's the topic. Here's what the coaches are talking about. Why are we limiting guys to 4 years of eligibility when they're making this NIL money and then they're going to leave and they can't make that money? They can't go to the pros. So why are we limiting them at 4 years? Why isn't this 5, 6, 7 years? Or why isn't there an age cap of 27 or 28 that they have to continue to take classes? And one coach said, I'll just tell my guys they could change his degree every other year.
Yeah, I don't like that at all either. No. And I'll let Wes talk about that at length too, because you need to create opportunities for the kids coming out of high school too.
Yeah, you're right.
You just can't have kids staying in college playing basketball for 7 years.
I agree. That's terrible for the kids coming out of high school. There's no place to go.
Wes?
I mean, you might as well form another pro league.
Yeah.
You don't want to have the Van Wilder thing where the guy stays in college for like 20 years.
Right.
Even though I'd love to live that life, but there's got to be an education, I think, aspect to this, because I realize that it's a different deal. It's not just, okay, you come here for 4 years, you're going to get your degree and all that. Like, that this is a totally different ball game now. But I kind of think we're getting too far away from it, where this is not name, image, and likeness. Name, image, and likeness is like, okay, we got a star player at UNLV, and he's going to be in the NBA draft. So Al and the people here at Dom DeMarco's have him out here to sign autographs. Pay the player for his time, fill up the restaurant, everybody eats some great food and has a great time. That's name, image, and likeness. This is just like straight salary. where there's free agency every single year. So I think NIL, name, image, and likeness, is not what this is. It's absolutely just pure pay-for-play now, but above board.
I can tell you this because I'm the National Scout Director for Recruit Look, and I help kids get college scholarships. And one of the things that is coming down the pipe, and it's supposed to be announced before the Diego Pavia appeal decision is made, so whenever that comes to fruition, the NCAA is going to make an announcement stating that right now you have 5 years to play 4. They are going to change that to you get 6 years to play 5. And their backing with this is where they're getting everybody on board is they put out statistics that show the average athlete is not graduating in 4 years. They're graduating in 4.5 to 5.25 years. So why are we taking away eligibility when they don't even have their degree? So I think you're going to probably see this go through. There's going to be 6 to play 5.
Yeah, I guess that's okay. That's not ideal. I mean,
No.
You work with kids, and this is going to really hurt kids who want to be recruited out of high school, because now college coaches are recruiting transfers instead of high school.
Exactly.
prospects.
The
Yeah.
funnels from high school to college, when I started doing this over 12 years ago, it was flowing like fast. You could get offers in freshman, sophomore year. Now these offers aren't coming until graduation or after, because coaches are holding guys and gals at bay to see, can I fill this team with the transfer portal? If I don't get that, can I get an NAI transfer kid that can't get into the portal? If I can't get that, can I get a JC kid? And then now it's the high school kid.
I'm glad you brought that up, Tommy, because a guy that Matt and I both know, Pat Knight, the son of Bob Knight, he is now the coach at NAIA Marion University
Sure.
in Indianapolis. And he was doing an interview I heard recently. He was like, one of the ways I recruit kids now, it's like, I'll get you to a level and I'll get you some NIL money. It might not be you jump from Marion to like the Big Ten or the SEC, but I can get you some money at Ball State. Or I can get you some money at Akron or Indiana State or some mid-major program. So that's how you got to recruit kids now. Because what essentially this has to be now, if we're going to continue down this road, and I think, I forget the gentleman's name, it was the Grambling head coach, it's like, okay, I get a guy out of high school, I put the time in, I recruit him, I develop him, he blows up at my program, and now Texas wants him, and now Texas A&M wants him, and LSU, and all these other schools around the Southwest, and it's like, where's my compensation for that? I'm the guy that got this player to Division I and recruited him, and now you're taking him from me. Are you going to give me some money? Almost like, European soccer, where you have that transfer market, where you transfer up a level, and it's like, okay, if Manchester United's going to take this player, we're going to give you some money to replace that player or something for your organization. And I think that's kind of what you have to do now, and I don't think these low majors are wrong.
No, I don't disagree with that at all.
Well, that's a point I hadn't thought of.
And the other issue that I have with all this whole thing is, and I've had conversations with coaches in different sports about this, and I'll bring up one in softball. There is a family I'm representing. Their daughter is better than anybody on this coach's current roster. And the coach will admit that to me. That your prospect would probably be my best player on my team today, and she's a high school player. But we'll turn right around and say, I'm interested, but I'm not willing to offer until I see what comes through the portal. And my bounce back was, wait a minute. If she's the best player on your team right now and she's in high school, then why aren't you all over her and giving her an offer now and get her locked up? Because if she's the best player on your team today, who do you think you're going to get in the portal that's going to beat her? But that's where these coaches' minds go. It is frustrating, and it does not make sense in these lower schools and these NAI schools. They just think that there's these great players are going to come flowing to a small NAI school from a Division I transfer. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Jim, let me ask you this. At the beginning of this tournament, everybody was talking about, the tournament's terrible. There's no upsets. There's no Cinderellas. They've ruined college basketball. And then after the Final Four, he's like, best tournament ever.
Well, the best Final Four ever, maybe. Not the best tournament ever.
I wouldn't say best tournament ever, but I wouldn't disagree that the whole tournament was not a good tournament. I mean, it was a lot of chalk, but I thought there was a lot of good games.
There were a lot of good games, but in the beginning, and most of the bettors that I know, especially dog players, including myself, got absolutely murdered the 64, the 68, the 32. It was like death. You know, it's just like every play. Oh my God, they can't play, and that's the way it was. But now when we got down to the 16, the 8, and the Final Four and everything, it was pretty damn good stuff. I mean, the final four games or so, you know, Final Four, the final game, the team that was ahead at halftime lost, every one of them. And then at the end, in the last minute, I mean, Florida, all they had to do was win 63 seconds of the whole game, and they won the game. I mean, it was exciting. It was good players. Everybody made mistakes, of course, and there was also great plays. And there were good coaching decisions and bad. It's always going to happen like that. But if the mid-majors no longer can't compete, they're going to have to go in a different direction, because you're not going to find 68 teams that are going to be competitive with these top teams that are getting all the transfers and the NIL players. It's just not going to work.
Man, I think we're going to see more of the same what we saw this year in future tournaments until something is done at a higher level with legislature. But I will say this, to Jim's point, and Matt, I'm curious to see what you think. I know the Crown wants to make a big push, and they're going to put more money into this NIL. And I heard that there were some teams that played in the Crown this year that declined invitations to the NIT.
True.
Because they wanted to play for the money.
Boise State being one, right?
Yeah, Boise State being one.
Yeah. I actually like the Crown tournament in Vegas, that 16-team tournament, because that was a dead week before the Final Four, and there were pretty quality games. We were betting on these games and watching these games every day and night. I would say I don't want to act like the sky is falling, but you're right. The tournament we watched in March is going to be indicative of what we see in the future. It's going to be fewer Cinderellas. It's going to be tougher to bet the small school underdogs like it has been in the past, because we had Drake and McNeese in the first round. Those are two Cinderellas. Typically, you would have 4 or 5. Now you're going to have maybe 2. Colorado State and New Mexico almost made the Sweet 16. They got close. It's just, you're not going to see as many Cinderellas. I thought the tournament was really good. No way was it the best tournament ever. The Final Four was very good. I don't want to offend Jim Feist here, but the championship game was so sloppy and poorly played for the most part. It reminded me of WNBA Finals Game 5 last night. I know Jim loves his WNBA, but no, for the most part, the championship game was pretty bad basketball until it was an exciting finish. A close game doesn't mean it's a great game. I thought it was poorly played for the most part. Poor shooting, a lot of turnovers.
To clarify,
and the last possession of the game is kind of.
That was terrible. That was
I know, that's a terrible way to end the game too.
Of course,
yeah.
To clarify, I didn't think it was a great game. I thought it was an exciting game, and I had the wrong side. I had Houston. I did have the under, so I split that. But they turned the ball over the last 4 times they had the ball, and they didn't get a shot off at the end. But there were a lot of mistakes on both sides. I didn't think it was a great game. I thought it was a very competitive game, very exciting game, and I was disappointed in the tournament quality overall, but I was happy with the excitement.
Wes?
Yeah, you don't want it to lose its charm, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I think you want at least a little bit of both, where it's like you get a couple Cinderellas in the Sweet 16, and then you get it down to the nitty-gritty where it's the best teams that you've watched all year, and they get rewarded, and the best teams are playing at the end. But the event does lose its charm a little bit, partially, and this is like a really just random thing here, but because it just seems like so corporate. Like, even looking at the floor paint jobs, you don't know what city they're in.
No, you don't.
We're going to take you to Salt Lake City for the final 2 minutes of, whoever against whoever, 2-point game, and used to have that excitement with like what's going on, and now it seems so corporate, and I like the charm of the old tournament. That's what I grew up on. That's what I think everybody else grew up on. But I don't think the sky is falling. But I think what you're going to need to see is kids that start at premium programs, when they don't get minutes, are they going to transfer down? Are you going to see somebody from the Big Ten that might not get minutes at a Purdue transfer down to like an Illinois State? Where then it's like, okay, you're getting really talented players in mid-majors that you didn't get out of high school.
But will Illinois State have the money to pay them?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, and that's the problem, is because kids used to transfer down and want to get minutes. Now it's just like transfer up, whether it's NAIA to like small college Division I or Division II to Division I. You haven't seen the opposite effect where kids transfer down from like a North Carolina to like, or a Tennessee rather, to like a Chattanooga or Middle Tennessee or something like that.
No, we haven't seen any of that.
Wes, let me ask you this. You brought up a point that I had a nice conversation with some friends of mine on. And you go way back. The first rounds were played on the court of the home school. They didn't have these designer courts.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not going to go back to that. But what I said is, why can't the first and second round, if you're playing at, say, Thomas and Mack, or you're playing at wherever, why can't that school's logo be at center court?
Right.
You can put the whole other court the way you want with the NCAA, but that school that's hosting, their logo should be at center court.
That's what the women's tournament still does now, where they have these teams that are top 4 seeds that they host the first 2 rounds, and I think that's good, and that's why you get a lot of chalk in the women's tournament, and why you don't get a lot of upsets, because it's like, who's going to go to Storrs, Connecticut and beat UConn in the first 2 rounds? So they reward those top 4 seeds, which I wouldn't mind necessarily happening, but I don't like that it's just so like corporate, and it takes the charm, because we all remember the classic moments. Whenever they show the classic moments every March, I can remember it based on the city it was in, watching that game, like when Danny Ainge went coast to coast against Notre Dame and upset. I remember that's the Omni in Atlanta.
Yeah.
When Steve Nash and Santa Clara knocked off Lute in Arizona. Sorry for bringing that up. That was in Salt Lake City at the Huntsman Center. And I always remember the buildings where these things happen at. So now it's kind of just very uniform.
Jim, before we get into the Masters and
We're not going to talk about
West,
WNBA to make Matt happy.
Well,
no, I would.
Game 5 of the finals would be better because Caitlin Clark.
Listen, I'm on Matt's side with the WNBA. For me, I just can't watch it.
We got the WNBA final show with Jim Feist is scheduled here for May 32nd.
So before we go into golf, tell me about baseball. You're winning?
No, not right now. I'm just kind of splitting out. No, I haven't.
Are you just betting first 5?
I've done a little bit of, more totals and first 5s mostly.
Okay.
Well, it's early and there's no form yet. I mean, you just bet the A's over every game, and you've got 5 winners, I think, so far.
Well, let me ask you this. I got a friend of mine who's trying this out. We're going to see how it goes. He decided before the season started, based on projections of wins with the Dodgers, he's betting the money line on the Dodgers every single game.
Well, he's lost a couple games.
They're 9-4, and he said, if that money line continues to grow, and then I get beat a couple times, I could be in the hole. But he's going to go the whole season, all 162.
So we had to tear up our 162-0.
Yeah, he had to bet that.
That didn't work out.
Do you think he'll come out on top at the end of the season?
Probably not.
Hell not.
In fact, right now, even after the Dodgers' hot start, if you're doing that, you're up 1 unit.
Right.
So it's going to be tough to make money. I know somebody else is trying to do the same thing. I doubt it's going to work.
I have a system.
Masters Week is here. And Wes, before I get your picks, I want to throw 3 names at you and that I like, and I just want to see what your thoughts are. And you may or may not like them, but here's the 3 guys that I am curious about. Russell Henley, Justin Thomas, and Ludwig Aberg. Whatever his name is.
Yeah, there's like 20 different pronunciations. Aberg, Oberg, the big Swede who won earlier at the Genesis. I'll start with the guy that is on my card of those 3, and that's Justin Thomas.
Okay.
I played at 25-1. By the way, caddy change for Justin Thomas this week because Matt Minster, who is Patrick Cantlay's old bad guy, is out with some kind of injury, so he's picking up Max Homa, who's been playing really poorly, just split with his caddy, so his old caddy is going to be on Justin Thomas's bag this week. So maybe a little narrative street there. Thomas hadn't won since 3 years ago at the PGA Championship. Boy, popular day. Anywho, he's working back to his peak form, I think. 7 top 10s in his last 11 events, dating back to the Tour Championship, and also the iron play, which Colin Morikawa kind of fit in that category for me too. These guys are hitting their approach shots like they were 2 and 3 years ago when they were winning a lot more regularly. So Justin Thomas is somebody I like this week. You mentioned Ludwig, who I actually have a ticket on, but I didn't give out this week because I bet him earlier in the year. He could do well here, but last year he was so good and he finished second behind Scheffler because he gained 8 strokes putting. that's hard to duplicate
Mhm.
year after year at the Masters because these greens are super fast. They're going to roll like 14 on the stimp meter over the weekend. And the third guy you mentioned was Russell Henley, right?
Yep.
A lot of sharp guys and a lot of guys I respect like Russell Henley. Now, Russell Henley historically is a really good putter on Bermuda greens. These are bent grass greens, so these are a little bit more smoother, a little faster, but he did win the biggest event of his career at the expense of Colin Morikawa at Bay Hill in Orlando at the Arnold Palmer last month. So maybe this is like, okay, he needed that breakthrough win, and now he's going to contend in a major. So I'm not necessarily mad at Russell Henley. I did not play him necessarily this week, but there's a lot of guys that I respect that have said, hey, he's kind of like a mid-range sneaky dark horse this week.
Who do you like, Wes?
Overall?
Yeah.
Well, I did mention a couple. I did mention Thomas and Morikawa. In terms of how I'm handling Rory, I only played him for a top 10. I want to see how Rory starts because that's where he's lost these tournaments, and he's been trying to complete that slam since 2015. And every year was like, this is the year for Rory. This is the year for Rory. I've said this to this guy a couple times, and it's like, this is not the year for Rory, and he ends up being right, and I end up being wrong. So, but he is coming in on great form this year. The best form he's been in. One at Pebble, one at the Players. The irons were great, but he starts well in the back, and I think that's a big problem for him because you can't be too far off the lead after round one. I think if you look at the last 6 years, he's averaged about 8 strokes behind the first round leader.
It's a lot of ground.
And you can't make that up. As good as Rory McIlroy is, and he's gotten into contention, you can't make that up. So, like, the pressure of getting the Grand Slam may have gotten to him, but I do think he's in great form, and he is a big-time threat. But
I'll say this about Rory. My brother, who follows golf religiously, said this reminds him of the chance when Phil had a chance to win the U.S. Open and couldn't do it. He's like, this is the year for Rory. If he doesn't do it, he probably ain't never going to do it. He's
don't
not
hit it off the hospitality tent like Phil did at Wings.
Yeah.
I always remember that.
He's like, the way he's coming in right now, this is his shot. If he doesn't do it this year, I don't know if he ever gets a chance.
Yeah, so Rory is who I'm playing for like a top 10. I'm not going to do the outright. I'm going to wait till after round one. But I played Morikawa and Thomas, as I mentioned. Morikawa, the irons, he's number one on the tour in strokes gained approach, which I think there's not one stat at the Masters that I think you just totally lean on, but approach is something you want to look at because you can make up for a lack of driving distance if your irons are good. So Morikawa, I did play John Rahm, who's a little bit of, I guess, somewhat forgotten, even though he's third or fourth choice on the odds board because he's now playing on LIV. He has not finished outside of the top 10 on the LIV in any event. Now, granted, there's only 54 players, but he's still playing good golf. He just hadn't been at peak John Rahm like he was a couple years ago. But I think getting back to Augusta could very well do that. So John Rahm is on the card for me, as was Morikawa and Thomas. One guy that I don't have a lot of stat evidence, I'm going with a gut here, and my gut hadn't been right on this guy very often, I'll admit, is Patrick Cantlay, who's now up to about 40, 45-ish to 1. All-around good game. You would think this guy would win majors, but he's never really challenged. He was top there, T3 at the U.S. Open, kind of behind Rory and Bryson last summer. Very good on approach so far this year, and that's been his weakness of late. So Cantlay is on my card. And then the three kind of longer shots, Minwoo Lee, I'm going back to him. Had him at Houston a couple weeks ago when he held off Scotty Scheffler. This is a course, by the way, at Augusta, wide fairways.
Yep.
So if you miss the fairway, it's not like, oh, this is death for you like it is in the U.S. Open when you got that.
The announcers can't say rough; they have to say second cut.
Yeah, second cut, and it's that pine straw. Remember when Bubba Watson hit it all over the place a couple times and won here, and Minwoo is probably one of those guys. And Minwoo really good around the greens, really good putting. And then speaking of a left-hander, Robert McIntyre, who I think kind of fits that profile of Phil and Bubba Watson, long-hitting left-handed guys, hit it all over the place, and then how the hell did you do that shot? You know, when they're scrambling a little bit. And Robert McIntyre, I think, can do that. Hadn't played here in a couple years. Did win twice last year at the Canadian Open and the Scottish Open after Rory, devastating loss to Rory the year before at the Scottish. So he rebounded from that. Good golf so far this year. 6 finishes, 17th or better in 9 events. McIntyre, and then we were mentioning, I think Al likes his long shot. Al Scalliott here at Dom DeMarco's likes Patrick Reed. Matt Newman's his favorite player, by the way, Patrick Reed.
His favorite. Actually, Al likes that because he read that in your column.
Okay. Well,
Did the forecast change? I saw earlier a couple days ago there was some possibility of rain.
Friday.
Yeah, I think we're going to get some Friday. Now, they have those dryers underneath the greens. So usually rain's going to like soften the greens up, right?
Yeah.
But I think these greens are still going to be super fast on the weekend. So that's why you're going to see a lot of 3-putts, because these are quick. They have different contours on them. So you want to land. It's not just hitting the greens like on your approach and your greens and regulation. It's also getting on the right contour of the green. So, you're not having these lag putts where they're double breakers or they're going up the hill and then down the hill. So, tricky greens, they're smooth and they putt true. Like they're not like POA or something where there's a lot of bumps in them and you've got to putt on dead on line. It hits a little bump and then it goes like 5 feet past. This is just pure speed on these greens at Augusta.
Jim. Let me ask you this, and then I'm going to go to Matt. Scotty Scheffler won it last year, favored again this year. Do you think he can go back-to-back at Augusta?
He can do anything. I mean, the guy's been at the top for years. It's an amazing run for this guy. Super talented. Of course he can win. You can't bet him when the price is too low. It's just like Rory. I couldn't bet him to win because, well, first of all, he hasn't done well here, but the price is too low. I mean, I got Morikawa, Straka, Win-Woo Lee, a couple of other ones in the top 20, top 10, top 5 wins. Just looking for prices. I'm not going for a favorite to try to do it, and I'm not going to go for Scotty because of the price.
Matt, you think you can win this, Scheffler?
Well, I think Wes, isn't Jack Nicklaus the only one who's won 3 Masters in 4 years?
Yeah, I believe he
Yeah.
is. And
Yeah.
Tiger, by the way, is the last one to defend in 2002.
Right.
So Scotty won in 2022, 24. He finished 10th in 23. Yeah, I think he can win this. In fact, I know Jim says the price, and I usually say the same thing. But I bet Scotty at plus 475 as an insurance policy in case all these other bets blow up. And we get to Sunday, and Scotty's like a minus 150 favorite. Then you wish you had plus 475.
You're right.
Right? So I also bet Scotty top 5, minus 101, top 10, minus 177. And Colin Morikawa on him at 17-1, also top 10. Let's see, Bryson DeChambeau, top 20. Jordan Spieth, top 20. Sepp Straka, top 20.
No Rory.
I played that Sepp as well.
You got anything on Rory?
Nothing on Rory. Rory gets off to slow starts at Augusta, so
Right.
if you bet him pre-tournament, you could be all your value in that bet could be lost by Thursday afternoon, right? Maybe you want to bet him after the first round. Joaquin Niemann, top 20. Shane Lowry at 45-1, top 20. Russell Henley at 55-1 and top 20. Yeah, I took a couple long shots like Justin Rose at 125-1, things like that.
He's been the first round leader here, by the way, 4
Rose?
times, Justin Rose.
Yeah.
Justin Rose has been playing well.
So if you got Justin, actually Rose, I've seen a couple books like Circa go out to 145-1 on him. You'd love to have that bet in your pocket if he's a first round leader.
You ain't kidding.
Yeah.
You ain't
We're
kidding.
close to it. Yeah.
But Tommy, you were talking about the prices here. Recent years, it's been a little more chalky at Augusta. Scotty was 4-1 when he won last year. Rahm was 9-1 the year before. Scotty was 16-1. Matsuyama 45-1 in 2021. Dustin Johnson 9-1. Tiger 16-1. Patrick Reed 50-1. You've only seen either shorter guys or mid-range guys. There's only been a couple long shots here the last 15 years. Schwartzel in 2011 was 90-1, but he was
Danny Willett.
Danny Willett was 66. Danny Willett, by the way, was 12 in the world ranking, so he was not a no-name, even though nobody seemed to know him. So 66-1, but yeah, you get shorter prices. Spieth won here at 10-1. Phil won here at 10-1. Bubba at 25-1. So don't be like, oh, I got to find this guy that's 150. Now, if you like him, you like him. Go ahead and bet him, but don't dig too much.
Well, speaking of 150, in 2020 when Tommy was supposed to go to Augusta, and the Masters
wins it in October.
that Masters got postponed from April to October, Dustin Johnson won that at 20-1 odds. He is 150-1 right now.
Wow.
Wes, I think he's playing okay in the Live Tour. He's not playing really well, but do you think he's worth a shot at 150-1? The guy's 20-1 here.
Probably at that number. Now, what concerns me is he's not contending
Right.
every week on Live. I think Rahm does and Koepka at least does.
DJ's
mostly.
just playing to play.
You want,
He's getting paid to play.
You wonder
He
where his
can
mindset is. He's got
He
got
will
the
get
love.
up for Augusta. I
Yeah.
mean, all these guys are going to be
That's
focused
what it
and
could
fully
be.
motivated
Yeah.
for Augusta.
That's what you're banking on here because
So
look, he's got the lovely wife, obviously.
Wes, let me throw out two more names at you. One I'm curious on is Xander Schauffele, who's been in contention at Augusta before, coming off an injury. I happened to see his press conference the other day. He seems like he's matured. He seems like he's got a different focus. I don't know if could be sneaky on a bet. What's your feeling on Xander?
A lot of people starting to like him because they've seen his price drift up. I did play him in a placement. I did not play him to win. He absolutely could win. He, of course, missed about a couple months to start the season with that rib injury. Came back in Florida, never really contended, but he played very well at the Valspar down there near Tampa, where he was number one in terms of ball striking. I believe a gentleman I was on a podcast with last night called it Kim Jong-un level of ball striking because, Kim Jong-un always sets the course record when he plays golf. A couple world leaders do that, as a matter of fact. But nevertheless, I think this might be where he peaks. Like, he's a guy that has 2 major championship trophies currently in his possession.
Yeah.
The Wanamaker for the PGA, the Claret Jug for the Open last summer. So,
And they asked him about that, and he said, believe it or not, he said, I feel more relaxed now that I've won a major than when I was here before without a major.
100%, because his good buddy, one of his best friends is Patrick Cantlay, and Patrick Cantlay still hadn't won a major. I'm sure that eats at him because they're always partners, right, in the Ryder Cup and in the President's Cup. And I think that does take the pressure off Xander. The fact that, hey, I know that I can do this, because you always look and you always saw, hey, he's got all these top 5s and these top 10s, but he's never really quite in it. Like, it looks good on a Wikipedia page, but he's never really been in it. Well, now he's been in it, so now I think he believes, and he's also was a former Olympic gold medalist. He's like, I can beat any of these guys. I'm just as good as Scotty or Rory, and he's certainly not priced there just because of the injury, I think.
Brooks Koepka.
Did not bet him.
Okay.
Certainly gets up for the majors. He's the best major championship player of the generation now because he already has 5. I think Rory is the best overall player of this quote-unquote post-Tiger generation. But he gets up for these things, and his price, he's always going to attract money at the majors, because there were a couple of years ago where I was getting asked, hey man, you think he's going to win over 10 majors? I'm like, 10 majors is a lot. I think there's only 3 in the history of the game that have ever done it. Walter Hagen, Tiger, and of course Jack Nicklaus. So I'm going to say no, just because I think that there's going to be injuries. And he has had some injuries, and then of course we didn't know that there was going to be a totally separate tour breakaway, but he certainly could contend. He didn't make my card though this week.
Matt, you like him?
Sounds like somebody broke into Wes's Porsche.
Hey, Wes?
I don't like Schauffele. I don't like Koepka in this. And who's the?
That was the 2 I asked about, was Schauffele and Koepka.
Schauffele seems just like he's out of the groove right now. You remember he was in that groove for a while where it felt like he couldn't be beat, or he was going to be in contention every week, and he's out of that right now. And Brooks Koepka, I'm not going to rule him out, but you have to limit how many players you're going to have.
Right.
You can't bet 20 players pre-tournament and something like this. And Koepka is one of those guys. I think that you got to make him prove it to you, because he's kind of been out of the groove for a while too. But course history at Augusta, course form means more in this major than anything else, any other tournament. And the guys that typically play well at Augusta are going to play well again, and Koepka's one of those guys, so we're not count him out. I'm just not going to bet him pre-tournament.
Jim, did you bet either one of those guys?
I have Morikawa, Straka, Minwoo Lee. Just looking for prices. I got many of them in the top 20, top 10, top 5. But I mean, there's only 90 players in this thing, and I can't bet all 90.
Well, and you could cut about half of them away too, because none of the seniors are going to win. The guys that won the Masters like 20 years ago.
Bernard's last competitive.
Bernard's not going to
How
win.
about an old guy, Lowry? What do you think of him?
Lowry's not that old. He just
No.
looks
Yeah,
old.
he looks like he's been out there for.
That's because
50 years.
he's at the pub every night.
Yeah, but a lot of people like it. A lot of people like him, and he started to play better. Recently the approaches have been good. I think I played him on a placement for a top 20, but that's about it for
I
me.
think Lowry's 15 years younger than Phil Mickelson. Is that right?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And he
just
doesn't look
Everybody looks
it.
15
Right.
years older.
He looks
Yeah.
a lot older. Speaking of Phil, here's a decent bet. How about Phil to make the cut, a minus 150? Wes? he knows how to get around the
Yeah.
Kessel with his eyes closed. And like you mentioned, there's 95 players, and 25 of those have no shot. You can just throw them out.
I
right?
did bet Phil to make the
Yeah.
cut. Actually, I did not get the bet in on Low Senior. I think he was like -110. And then I looked, and everybody in the world bet it, and then it was over $2. Like, well, I don't want to lay 90 cents the worst of it, because it'll be him or Angel Cabrera, who is now recently released from the Hooskow, and then
Yeah.
he wins on the Champions Tour
Right.
last week. So probably preferred those cheeseburger sliders that Scotty Scheffler served more than the empanadas he had in the Argentinian prison over the last couple of years. But yeah, Phil, I think, is going to make the cut. Phil was actually in the mix last weekend on Live. They played the Blue Monster at Doral down in Miami, and he was actually in the mix. Kind of got a bad break where I think a shot hit off the pin and then went into the water.
Yeah.
You know, so and that kind of ruined him, and they got on tilt. But Phil knows every nook and cranny of this place. He still hits it long for a guy that's in his 50s, and he knows where he can miss here. He knows where he can get away with trouble, and I think Phil is a very good make the cut bet.
Ray, you got a question?
Yeah, I got.
Nobody's surprised.
Yeah. Well, not really a big golf bettor, whatever, but I want to keep it interesting. And I'm looking on how to attack all this, And I come up with everything I see is like -150. I'm just a football and, trying to get the edge, the juice, and all that whatnot. I've narrowed it down to 3 so far. Want to know what you guys think just for tomorrow. I got, because they're all 150, and I'm going to grab that Phil one just for fun because I'm Joe Public. I got Justin Thomas, just for tomorrow only, -150. Justin Thomas to beat Spieth. I got Scheffler to beat McIlroy just tomorrow. And then I got Morikawa just tomorrow to beat Xander Schauffele.
How'd you pronounce it?
Schauffele.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I like that.
I mean, I'm going to add 2 more, and that's it. -150. I just got to hit a.
Give me the first one again.
I got Justin Thomas just tomorrow. Just tomorrow. Justin Thomas
To beat Jordan.
To beat Jordan. Then I got Scheffler to just tomorrow. Rory, and then Morikawa to beat Schauffele. And then I'm gonna add Phil. And then I'm gonna probably add 2 more if I can grab him at -150.
Are these straight bets or parlay?
You can't parlay him, believe it
Oh,
or
no.
not.
Those straight bets?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Matt, what do you think of those?
I'd like to add a couple more.
I don't disagree with any of those. I thought he was just looking for plus price bets. I would take Colin Morikawa top 10 at +150. Jim, I think you've got him, right?
I do. I actually like him a lot. I
Sure.
got
Especially top 10.
18 to 1 on him. I
Yeah.
thought that was a good price.
Yeah.
Especially
like,
at top 10.
Shane Lowry top 20 +120. I got a lot of plus
I agree with
price.
that, too.
The top 10, top 20s, I think, are the way to go. You can get plus prices on a lot of
Yeah.
those. West bet's a lot of
Straka
those.
has a good shot.
Straka top 20 is +200. That's a pretty good bet.
Straka's been like a real buzz player this week because he's very rarely contended in a major, but he seems like a different level of player now that he's winning more regularly. Had him in the Bob Hope, the American Express earlier this
Confidence
year.
is way up.
Yeah, absolutely. So that'd be the way I would attack if you don't want to do outrights. Like everybody wants to say who's going to be the winner. Well, that's not always easy to figure it out. Even at the Masters, like for me, of the 4 majors, in full disclosure, this is like my worst major. My best, I think, is like the U.S. Open because I can target the grinders who are going to embrace, the fact that even par is going to be a great score. So you're not really looking for the birdie machines. And then plus, I have less time. When I have less time, maybe I do better. With the Masters, these prices, especially the outrights, these been up since like last November. So
She bring up the U.S. Open. A guy I always love in the U.S. Open, and he's won it once, is Justin Rose, because he's a grinder. He can just sit there and go through.
Someone just mentioned
Yeah, we just
he's
talked
led
about
this
it.
thing like 4 times in the day one.
Yeah.
He's amazing early.
Any other questions besides Ray out there? So this is our last show from Dom DeMarco's until August come football time. But Dom's is going to sponsor the show, and why don't you explain where the show's going to go to?
Well, I'm going to do it from my house. And
Okay.
We're going to bring in guests by phone. I don't know what technology we use, but I'm not very good at the technology part. But I want to thank Albert and the entire staff here, Chris, for all he does. This has been great. I think we've done about 30 shows, and you've done a fantastic job hosting this show.
I appreciate that.
It's been a lot of fun. We've had a lot of people show up. Maybe not as many as we wanted every week, but I think we've had a day or two when we might have had 30. which is pretty good, and it'll grow. And we're going to keep the momentum going through the summer. We're going to talk about golf. We're going to talk about baseball, and yes, Matt, we're going to talk about the WNBA as well. And the only reason I love that sport is because I beat the hell out of it last year and made good money. I mean, I don't really love any sport unless it makes me money.
That makes sense.
I know you don't like money enough to like the women's basketball.
Jim Feist, WNBA show, right here on May 32nd. Show up.
At 1 p.m. And also we want to thank Jake and for him donating 3 bottles of wine from J-Lore every single week.
That's
so
right.
We want to make sure we thank him and everybody else. But before we, sign off, let me, thank Matt and Wes for all the time that they have done in coming on the show and being supporters of your show and actually help getting guests to be on the show. That's always been fantastic. Everybody behind the scenes here has done a great job. So we want to thank that. Albert.
I have to say that every guest I had on the show, I got through my good friend Matt Humans.
So every guest came from Matt. So give Matt a round of applause
Yeah.
for that. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate that.
I definitely want to thank all the people that have showed up to support the show, be guests on the show. Wes has been here a number of times. Matt, of course, has really helped put it together and been here a number of times as well. This has been a lot of fun. Met a lot of great people, great sports bettors, people that actually do bet their money on these games, and well, I tell you, some of them are damn good at what they do. And I've learned a lot just sitting here and listening. And it's been a lot of fun. Again, I look forward to coming back in August, and we're going to keep it going through the summer.
Until August, I hope everybody makes a whole lot of money over the summer betting baseball, golf, and Jim's WNBA. Don't miss that show, May 32nd at 1 o'clock. I'll see you in August. My name is Tommy Canale, everybody. We'll see you then. Take care.